6 tons of amber, gold leaf, and mirror glass packed into crates and moved east during a world war. Then, somewhere between a bombed city and the end of a collapsing empire, the trail stops. Not fades, not thins, stops. The Amber Room had taken more than a decade to build and 2 centuries to become one of the most celebrated interiors in Europe. Its disappearance produced one of the most persistent and genuinely unresolved mysteries of the 20th century. Not because the evidence is thin, but because the last confirmed location was inside a city that was systematically destroyed. The room began in 1701 as a commission for Charlottenburg Palace in Berlin, intended for Frederick, the first king in Prussia, at the urging of his second wife, Sophia Charlotte. German Baroque sculptor Andreas Schlüter drafted the concept and design. Gottfried Wolfram, master craftsman to the Danish court, led its fabrication, with amber masters Ernst Schacht and Gottfried Thurau from Danzig contributing the detailed panel work. When the panels were finished, they went not to Charlottenburg but to the Berlin City Palace. They did not stay there long. Peter the Great of Russia saw the room during a visit and admired it. In 1716, Frederick William Thurn, son of the original patron, presented the room to Peter as a diplomatic gift, a gesture that helped cement a Russo-Prussian alliance against Sweden. It was Peter's daughter, Empress Elizabeth, who decided the amber panels should go to the Catherine Palace at Tsarskoye Selo, outside St. Petersburg, where the imperial family spent its summers. The Italian architect Bartolomeo Francesco Rastrelli, working in service of the Russian court, had to expand the installation significantly to fit a hall roughly 6 times larger than the original Berlin design. He enlarged the scheme with gold and mirror elements. Frederick II of Prussia later sent additional amber pieces that had not been used in the Berlin installation. After several rounds of renovation across the 18th century, the completed room covered more than 55 square meters and held over 6 tons of amber. Its estimated value in modern assessments ranges from $142 million in 2007 to over $500 million in 2016. It was called, without much dispute, the 8th wonder of the world. That was what normal looked like: a fixed, celebrated, well-documented interior in a palace outside St. Petersburg. What happened next took less than a week to set in motion and more than 80 years to fail to resolve. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941, the staff at Catherine Palace faced an immediate problem. Amber is brittle. Moving large amber panels quickly carries serious risk of irreparable damage. Soviet curators reportedly attempted to conceal the room behind wallpaper rather than dismantle it. When Army Group North reached Tsarskoye Selo in the autumn of 1941, German soldiers and specialists dismantled the amber room in a matter of days. The panels were crated and transported to Königsberg in what is now the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. In Königsberg, the room was reassembled and put on display in the castle. It remained there for roughly 2 years. Then sometime in early 1944, with Allied forces advancing and the strategic situation deteriorating, the decision was made to disassemble the room again and crate it for storage in the castle basement. In August 1944, Allied bombers struck Königsberg. The castle was heavily damaged. Documentation of the Amber Room's location ends at that point. That is the pattern interrupt the case turns on. The room did not vanish in transit or during a contested handoff between rival powers. According to the documented record, it was last known to be crated in the basement of a castle that was then substantially destroyed. The mystery is not one of secret movement or deliberate concealment before the bombing. The mystery is what, if anything, survived the bombing and what happened in the chaos that followed. Investigators, historians, and treasure hunters have pursued the Amber Room for decades, and the competing explanations fall into a small number of categories, each with its own evidentiary weight. The first and most straightforward explanation is that the room was destroyed in the August 1944 bombing and the fires that followed. Amber burns. Königsberg Castle sustained severe damage. If the crates were in the basement when the building above them burned, The material could have been largely or entirely destroyed. This explanation is consistent with the documented timeline and requires no additional actors or movements. Its weakness is the absence of confirmed physical evidence of destruction. No systematic forensic examination of the castle site has produced conclusive proof that the panels burned there. The second explanation, pursued by numerous investigators, is that the crates were moved out of Königsberg before or after the bombing, either by retreating German forces or by Soviet troops who captured the city in April 1945. Several searches of locations in Germany and Central Europe, salt mines, bunkers, and other sites used to store looted cultural property, have not produced the room. Soviet investigators who examined the Königsberg site after the war reported finding fragments and evidence of fire damage, but accounts vary on what exactly they found and what conclusions could be drawn. A third explanation holds that the room or portions of it may survive somewhere, either deliberately hidden or forgotten in the disorder of the war's final months. This explanation appeals to the fact that several other major looted artworks and cultural objects were recovered decades after 1945 from locations where they had been concealed or misfiled. It remains a hypothesis without corroborating physical evidence. The case also reveals something about the category of loss it belongs to. The Amber Room is not an anomaly in the history of World War II cultural destruction. Millions of objects moved under the Nazis' organized looting operations, documented in part by the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg and other agencies. Many were recovered. Many were not. What makes the Amber Room distinct is its scale, its prior fame, and the precision with which its documented history ends. Not with a vague dispersal, but with a specific building in a specific city at a specific moment when that city was being destroyed from the air. The reconstruction completed in 2003 at Catherine Palace took 24 years of work by Russian craftsmen and required donations from Germany to fund. It stands as a documented civic and diplomatic act, a recreation of what was lost. But it is a replica, not a recovery. Its existence does not close the question of the original's fate. It was built precisely because that question could not be answered. There is also the matter of what the case has produced over the decades. Competing claims, announced discoveries that dissolved under scrutiny, searches that ended without resolution. The history of the Amber Room's investigation is itself a record of how the absence of a definitive answer generates continued speculation, some of it careful and some of it not. Return to those crates in the castle basement. August 1944. The decision to disassemble and store the room had already been made. The bombing followed. And then, between that documented moment and everything that came after, the capture of Königsberg, the Soviet investigations, the decades of searches, the physical object either burned, was moved, or vanished into the disorder of a collapsing war. The strongest remaining question is not where the Amber Room is. It is narrower and more precise than that. It is whether any forensic evidence exists that could distinguish, definitively, between destruction in place and removal before or after the bombing. The Soviet post-war investigation produced ambiguous findings. The site has never been subjected to a full modern forensic excavation with contemporary methods. 6 tons of amber, a documented final location, an 800-year-old castle reduced to rubble, and no confirmed answer on the other side. The unsolved vault. Every case leaves something behind.